We're back at our off-grid property today with the main goal to sauna and swim in the frozen lake. We're actually going to cut the lake today with the chainsaw, and I'm going to show you some of the things that we've learned from doing this sort of thing over the last few years. And there's a few things that surprised us as we learned them along the ways, and I think they'll surprise you too.
It's bumpy. It's real bumpy.
I don't know if we'll be skating here.
But like that's real nice.
Oh yeah, we'll be able to skate on this. What should we do first? Cut a hole, start the sauna? Just like right here. Nice little view of the sauna behind it.
This isn't our first time cutting a hole in the ice like this. We did it one more time this year, but last year we were just using an ice auger to do all these cuts, and that's really tedious. You basically have to cut a perimeter of holes with the ice auger and then haul that ice out of there, and you can't really overlap the holes necessarily if the ice is kind of soft because the ice auger kind of binds up. Anyways, it's just a lot more work. This chainsaw method works way better, but there are some things you need to know. So a normal chainsaw obviously takes gas, but it also takes bar oil, which is an oil that lubricates the chain and the bar. But when you're cutting through the ice, you don't really want that bar oil to get everywhere. So I found out that you don't need it at all for cutting through ice. The ice cools the bar and the wet lubricates it.
You want a big hole today?
No.
So we're using a battery saw here, so there's not any gas or liquids at all. We're just putting in a battery and then letting it go. But the first time I did this, we did empty out the bar oil and then ran the saw a bit, but there was still kind of an oil slick on top of the water after cutting. Because what I didn't do is I didn't take the bar off and clean out all the old oily wood chips. So this time I took the bar off and really gave it a good cleaning before we're gonna cut today.
Ooh, we're through. The water's bubbling up. I think what you really want to do when you're chainsawing the ice is try not to cut all the way through right away and cut most of your, like almost as deep as the water with most of your cuts, just so it doesn't get really wet. I was worried this little tiny bar wouldn't cut all the way through, but it looks like we're just short of 14 inches of ice here, so the saw's gonna do it. With a battery saw like this, you can't normally put a really big bar on it because basically the longer the bar is, the harder it is for the saw to like pull through the wood. But an ice is like so soft, it's like cutting with butter. So I might even be able to put like a really long bar on this little battery saw and be able to cut the ice when it gets thicker. Ooh, this is cool. Last time we took these out with a metal pole, we just kind of slid them out. But this time, I got these from Facebook Marketplace for 30 bucks, and they're these like vintage ice tongs. And I think they were made by a blacksmith, just the way they're made. These are probably 100 years old. The guy who sold them to me thought they might be like hung up in a restaurant or something, but nope, we're gonna use them. Sometimes people just make one square and then slide the whole square under the ice. Something about that kind of terrifies me. Like, what if you're in there and then the sheet pops back up or something? I don't know. It's just kind of scary. Oh, look at that ice. I don't think I've ever seen ice this like nice here.
I am so impressed with how well these tongs work. This is way better than just trying to push the ice out of the water.
Is it easy to pull up with this?
Yeah, you gotta try it.
Just in the side? Just doing a single person edge?
Of course not, dear. Let's go.
A friend told me this has some real opening scene of Frozen vibes, and it sure does, but that's not really what we're going for. The plan now is to fire up the sauna and eat a little lunch, and maybe go for a skate before we go for a dip. We've been slowly building out this recreational property here on YouTube, and one of the first things that we built was actually this sauna building. When I was building this sauna, I put together some really meticulous plans on the build of this so that when we came here on the weekends and went to build, I'd have to do a lot less decision making and I could just basically assemble the sauna. Some of you have been asking to purchase these plans and I'm happy to say that they're finally available. I've included the full 3D SketchUp model. This includes different tagged layers, so every different aspect of the sauna is in its own tag so you can show and hide different sections of it. It's also got measurements, and I also included a PDF with lots of details of the build. And in the PDF, you'll also find a materials list, so you can actually use that to tally up the costs of different materials in your area and then actually come up with kind of like a great little estimate for what your sauna project might cost before you even get to building. All this is in the link in the description. If that's something you've been waiting for and asking for, check it out. There's one thing we have to address before we get to lunch, and that's a safer way to get in and out of the water.
We've done this before, and it's not too hard getting in and out of the ice by just pushing your weight up, but I figured it's maybe a little unsafe, so I wanted to come up with the ladder solution. So I built this ladder last night. This is just made out of 2x4s, and I did route the edges to kind of give it a smoother feel. But I just kind of slammed this together in an hour or two and used some scraps, 2x4s for the rungs, and then just bought two long ones. So this is hopefully going to make it safer. It's really deep here, so I'm not sure this ladder is going to hit the bottom. And then also the ladder is going to float, so I might have to weigh it down with something. It certainly floats.
Doesn't touch at all?
Doesn't touch even a little bit.
Oh, shoot.
It's so deep here. You have to keep cutting, I guess?
Doing a big hole today?
It's deep. I guess we're cutting a bigger hole. Continue shoveling off the ice, but there's an old snowmobile trail. Made a ripple in it. Just keep going bigger. We got a string of the knot in it. Let's see how deep this is. All right, we hit the ground there. Ladder would stick out about this much. It's just a bit deeper. So I might just have to cut a bit more out. That's the bottom right there. The ladder will just touch.
You may wonder how thick ice needs to be for it to be safe to walk on. Now this ice is probably like 8 or 9 inches thick and it's nice and clear, so the quality of the ice does make a difference, but you only really need like 4 inches to walk along. And I think this sort of thickness you could probably drive an ATV or a snowmobile on. I know there's people out there that'll risk it and go on like 2 inches of ice, but I like to have like 4 or 5 inches before doing stuff like this. So because the ladder floats, I'm going to try tying an anchor to one of the rungs. It seems to keep the ladder down, but we're going to need to like slide some ice up against it or something to keep it in place. It's real nice sitting on the dock and enjoying another lunch, even though it's winter. We do this a lot in the summer, but it's nice in the winter too. One of these years I want to come out here before it snows, but the lake is frozen and go for a skate. We kind of missed that opportunity this year, but there's only about an inch or two of snow on here, so we can still skate a whole lake without having to shovel anything. This is fun. It's kind of weird pushing through the snow with your skates and you totally get caught off guard by ruts and stuff made by snowmobiles. But it's still a lot of fun. The sauna should be hot by now. We're just going to clear off a little bit of ice that's already frozen over from our hole. And now it's time to sauna. It's a real hot one today, 100 degrees Celsius. So it's like 90 degrees in here, but you're wearing glasses, like we have jewelry and stuff on. And all that stuff's fine because like your body keeps your glasses cool, and the body keeps the room cool. But if you have like dangling earrings, you've noticed like if the hot earring will be out in the 90-degree temperature, getting hot, and it like hits your skin, it like kind of burns, yeah. So like no necklaces or dangling earrings, but any other jewelry is pretty much fine. I know cold plunging is kind of a trend, but we don't really do it for that. We don't really know what the health benefits are and all that stuff, but we just do it because it's fun. You get so hot in the sauna, your core temp rises a bit and your just skin is hot. So the cold water is a little bit of a shock, but it's not too bad. And then the crazy thing is when you come out, you're just fine. Like you can just hang out outside in the cold weather, even after having a really cold dip because your core temp is still high. We basically do this on repeat. We go back into the sauna and get good and hot again, and then we go back to the cold plunge. Sometimes we don't cold plunge and we'll just hang out and eat something or have a drink and a break. Let's go eat some oysters. This day turned out so beautifully, and cutting a hole in the lake with the saw was definitely a lot of fun, and having a ladder really did make the experience so much better. A lot easier to get in and out, and I would highly recommend doing something like this if you have the chance. When we leave this place, we want to make sure it's safe, so we did pile up the blocks so that people could see it, but a good idea is to also just put the blocks back in the water, and then that way it'll freeze over a lot quicker. It's not going to snow for a couple days, so leaving the open hole is fine because it'll just freeze over solid overnight, and then people can just walk on it again.